What's going on, guys, and welcome to another Doctor Who classic review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 7th Doctor Sylvester McCoy story, Paradise Towers. This is the second story from season 24, which is the 7th Doctor's first season, so only his second story after Time in the Rani, which is an awful episode if you saw me review that one. It's actually my it's my worst rated episode of Classic Who so far. So yeah, I was interested to see what Paradise Towers would do for me, because I'd heard very mixed things about this. I'd heard some people say that they really don't like the story and they just think it's just another bland, stupid, silly season 24 story. But then I heard some other people defending it and saying that this is actually quite a good story. So I went in this with a pretty open mind, not really knowing what to expect. So yeah, this is Paradise Towers by Stephen Wyatt. According to the sales brochure, Paradise Towers is a utopian blueprint for community living with its fabulous architecture and state-of-the-art facilities. The perfect place for Mel to take a leisurely swim, in fact. But when the TARDIS arrives, the Doctor and his companion discover that the futuristic tower block has fallen into ruin, and a series of unexplained disappearances have the tenants living in fear. As gangs of teenage girls run wild in the hallways, a squad of bureaucratic caretakers struggle to retain control. To keep the citizens of Paradise Towers safe, the Doctor must confront the resident evil lurking in the basement. Quite a long little synopsis on the back of that one. You know, one of the longer synopses, I'd say. But yeah, a pretty interesting little thing. You know, the Doctor and Mel go here for a little bit of a holiday, for a little bit of a swim in the pool, because Mel wants to go for a swim. But it turns out they get there and the place is not like they expected it to be. So yeah, nice little thing on the back of the DVD there. Anyway, let's get started with the cast. So Sylvester McCoy as the 7th Doctor, yeah, he's pretty good in this one. I do quite like him. He's actually not as much of a silly season 24 self in this one. He's not really silly at all, and this is weird because I always thought the whole thing with season 24 was that the whole season was a bit too silly. Now, he was quite silly in Time in the Rani, but a lot of that was to do with the post-regeneration stuff, but he was even then a bit too silly. I haven't watched Delta and the Bannerman yet. I have seen it before, but quite a long time ago. But from what I've heard and what I remember, that is a pretty silly story, so maybe the Doctor is a bit too silly in that one, I don't know. And then in Dragonfire, from what I remember, it's a long time ago since I watched that and reviewed that now, but I don't remember him being too silly in that one, maybe a little bit, but in this one, definitely not. He's quite a lot more serious in this one, I'd say. And yeah, it's really quite good here. This is one of my favourite performances of Sylvester McCoy, especially from this season. Bonnie Langford as Mel Bush, yeah, I mean, she's okay, I suppose. Really not a big fan of Mel at all. She screams way too much, and she does it in this one as well. There are a couple of really high-pitched screeching moments for Mel, and then other than that, she's just kind of your basic companion that's, I don't know, not really that helpful in a lot of ways. She's split up from the Doctor for most of this story, but yeah, I mean, she's okay. Alright, so let's get on to the good and the bad, starting with the good. The three factions, the Kangs, Caretakers, and Rezzies. I like how there is three factions here. Now this is something we see this quite a lot in Doctor Who, where there's kind of different factions, different groups, and they don't get along with each other, and that's basically the thing here. You've got the Kangs, however they're not just one faction themselves. You've got the Red Kangs and you've got the Blue Kangs, and they kind of hate each other. You've got the Caretakers, who are there to pretty much, you know, make sure things are going well, make sure, you know, people aren't killing each other all over the place. However, you know, turns out that's not going very well here. But you've got those are all, because I mean, all the Kangs are women. They're all like teenage girls. The Caretakers are all men. And then you've got the Rezzies, who are these old ladies. We only see women. I don't know if there's men with them as well or not, but all the Rezzies that we see, at least, are all women, old women. I think these are like the original residents of Paradise Towers or something, that have managed to survive throughout this apocalypse or whatever's going on. So you've got these three different factions, and they all hate each other. And then you've got Pex as well, who is kind of I think they call him like an in-betweener or something. He's kind of not here nor there, and went to fight in a war, but he's like the only one left because he chickened out of the war or something. And there's all these different factions and these different groups. And although it's something that we see quite a lot in Doctor Who and just in kind of sci-fi and shows in general, I do quite like these different I like the differences between all these groups that I find it quite interesting. Tabby gets pulled down the waste disposal. So we have these two women, Tabby and Tilda, two old women. They're two of the Rezzies, and they find Mel. And I think the intention was that they wanted to eat her. They wanted to fatten her up by giving her cake, tea, and biscuits and stuff, and fattening her up so then they could eat her. But then Tabby gets... She's in the kitchen, and one of the robot's claws comes out of the waste disposal and grabs her and pulls her down there. And then not too long after, Tilda, the other woman, gets pulled down and killed as well. So yeah, I thought that was just a really interesting, just kind of funny, but also kind of dark moment of just this old lady getting pulled down a waste disposal chute. I thought that was I thought that was quite funny and a little bit dark. The doctor turning the interrogation on the chief. So the chief caretaker is interrogating the doctor, and I just love how the doctor switches it on him, because you know the chief's asking the doctor questions about things, and then the doctor starts asking the chief about things. They switch seats, and then the doctor shines the light on the chief, and he's now interrogating him. And I just think that's a really cool moment. It's something very, very doctory, you know, to literally just flip the situation like that, because the thing is as well, the chief starts answering his questions and stuff. It's just this thing with the doctor, he can just literally flip a moment like that, and all of a sudden he goes from not being in control to being in control, and I thought that was a really cool scene. Caragnon, the Great Architect, taking the chief's body. So we have the Great Architect. We're wondering who the Great Architect is the whole time. The chief is thinking that it was thinking the whole time that it was the doctor. It turns out that the creature that the chief has in the basement of Paradise Towers is actually the Great Architect called Caragnon, and Caragnon he can't leave the basement at this current point in time. He wants to go into a human body so that he can, you know, get out of the basement and wander his towers and kill everyone because he doesn't like anyone for some reason. So he takes the chief's body, and the performance by the guy who plays the chief, Richard Briers, I think he does a really great performance in both roles, but he's so much different when he is the architect, and I really like it. He's very creepy, very, very creepy. But yeah, I like that whole moment where, you know, he gets him in there and, you know, surrounds like a big tube around him, basically kills him and puts himself into the chief's body. I thought that was a very interesting little moment there. All the groups who despise each other working together. Now, I really like this. I thought this was really cool. Did I kind of see it coming? Yeah, I mean, I pretty much did. You've got all these different groups, and none of them like each other, none of them get along with each other. So of course, in the end, they're gonna have to group up, and they end up grouping up really well and basically becoming friends at the end. But I still really like that moment by the pool where, you know, the Red Kangs and the Blue Kangs are already kind of becoming friends. You know, at the start they hated each other, but now they've kind of merged and they're friends with each other. And then the Rezzies come along and they've got to make friends with them, and they're like, as long as we don't have to make friends with the caretakers. And then that one caretaker, the deputy chief caretaker, comes in because he's found out what's going on with the chief, and now they're going to work together with them as well. So I liked that. I liked how literally every group, the Rezzies and everything, all work together to basically take the Great Architect down. And that brings it to my final point. Pex sacrifices himself to kill Caragnon. Once again, kind of saw it coming in a way when, you know, all the groups were like, all right, we're going to do this and we're going to do this. And by the way, I love that each group had its own kind of strengths. So the Kangs, good with weapons, not the smartest things, not the smartest, you know, beings in the world, but very good with weapons. So they did all the shooting, they did all the killing of the robots. And then the Rezzies, there are these old people, they do a lot of knitting. They knit like sheets and rugs and stuff, so they're going to use that to throw over the robots, so then, you know, the Kangs can get a shot at them. So I like how they use that sort of thing as well. And then Pex comes in to basically be the one who sacrifices himself in the end to destroy the Great Architect. I liked it, a little bit predictable, but I still liked it. Alright, on to the bad. There are a couple of points. To be fair, they're all pretty nitpicky on the whole. First one is, do the caretakers need So many numbers. Now, one thing I noticed at the start of this episode, at the first episode of this, when there was that caretaker and he was talking to the chief on his like walkie-talkie, and his number was like caretaker 213-117265. It took him about 5 minutes to say that, and every time he wanted to talk to this person, he said that number, and it was just like, okay, we've heard the number 1 or 2 times. Do we have to keep saying it every single time? It literally takes an hour to say. Like, it's like caretaker 12347 9-1142. It was a little bit ridiculous. I thought that was a bit too much. So yeah, that was just a minor niggle that annoyed me, really, and it was only in the first episode that we really heard any of that. Also, Mel's awful screams, mentioned this before. Mel does my head in with the way she screams. She screams so loud, it's literally a shriek, not a scream, and I just don't like it. They use it a lot of the time for cliffhangers, but I don't mind a companion screaming a bit, but Mel, it's not a scream, it's a screech. It's really ear-piercing. And then the final bit, I think the first 2 parts are a little bit too slow. Parts 3 and especially part 4 I think are very well paced and exciting. The first 2 parts though, I found them to be a little bit slow at times. The thing with, Mel how she kept going to Tabby and Tilda, she, went there twice. I found those were a little bit kind of dragged out and maybe a little bit too filler. But yeah, parts 3 and 4 though, I thought were really good. So, a rating for Paradise Towers. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I actually did quite enjoy this one, quite a lot. I'm not giving it a massively high rating. I'm also not giving it a low rating though. I mean, I'm giving it a 7.5, which for me, slightly above average. I think episodes 3, but mainly episode 4, really boosted this one up for me. I was thinking, first 2 parts, I was like, yeah, this is like a 6. Maybe a 6.5 out of 10, and then the further I went on, and then after the end of it, I thought, you know what, this is actually pretty good. I'm going to give it a 7.5. I enjoyed it, especially at the end. Yes, it was a bit slow to start with, but once I kind of got my head around everything that was happening, and the different factions in that I really liked, the different groups, all the characters were interesting, although some of them are a little bit annoying. Yeah. Generally, I'd watch this one again. It's an enjoyable 4-part story, so yeah, a 7.5 out of 10 for Paradise Towers. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, link is in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.